Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 5th of October 2021. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So this is going to be an exciting refuel today. Holy crap, there's a lot to get through. So let's get right into it. I put out this tweet today where I said the merge is coming. Now I know I spoke about this yesterday, the ETH1 to ETH2 merger. This image here, this picture of these pandas kind of merging together. This was put out by Xiaowei Wang, a few weeks ago now, I think. And I just think it's a really, really cool meme, so I reshared it. But I shared it because for those of you who have been paying attention to, I guess, like Twitter over the last 24 hours and all the tweets that I've been retweeting, you'll have seen that a lot of the clients are now talking to each other. Now, there's a bunch of screenshots here. You can see Tim Beiko shared one about the progress of Amphora, which I think is a devnet for the merge. So you can see here, they're on kind of like M3, which I'm pretty sure is kind of, I guess like, it's a milestone tracker here. So you can see the Amphora client milestone tracker. All the clients are kind of like talking to each other, doing great things here as part of the merge. And then, I mean, there's so many screenshots. I retweeted them all. Like basically, Geth and Teku kind of like following along, merging. You have an update from Jacek here who said Sigma Prime or Lighthouse and Geth make a merge transition over the network, hitting another milestone. Then we're going through here, Lion from ChainSafe, where they had more clients talking to each other here. Lodestar reached M2 plus M3 milestones, one-to-one interop with the execution clients, which means basically interoperability with the ETH1 clients, the execution layer clients like Geth and stuff like that. I think I'm looking for, there's another one here from Adrian Sutton. I think this might be the same one before. Maybe I opened it twice. But there's one here from Marius who says, he goes, Alpha League, don't buy any more mining hardware. On the left is Geth running post-merge. Top right is a Lighthouse beacon node. And bottom right is a Lighthouse validator. So, I mean, I'll link all this in the YouTube description. But these are just like screenshots coming out. And all these people are core developers. Like Tim Beiko is part of the core developers on the ETH1 side. Kind of like... on the execution layer side, kind of like leading the efforts there. Adrian Sutton works with Pegasus on the that builds the Teku client. Jacek, as I mentioned yesterday, is working on Nimbus at Status. Lion here is working on the Lodestar client at ChainSafe. Marius is working on Geth, obviously at the Ethereum Foundation. And yeah, I mean, this is just great. I mean, the amount of progress that's being made on the merge over the last, I guess, like 24 to 48 hours is giving me maybe too much confidence, but giving me a lot of confidence in hitting the Q1 kind of like launch window here. If we can get a test net up and running, or like a few test nets up and running, and have a long-lived test net for a little while this year, then I don't see a reason why we can't have the merge the merge happen by March of next year. I know we're already in October and that's only 6 months away, but I don't know, the progress that I'm seeing is amazing. It just seems like everything is working really smoothly, everything's going really well, and I'm getting the same feeling I got when I saw this happening for the Beacon Chain last year, where all the kind of like clients got together as part of this interoperability event. All the ETH2 client teams got together for this interoperability event, and we had them all kind of like talking to each other. There was amazing progress being made. They were all sharing screenshots on Twitter, and then we had the kind of test nets go live, the long-lived test nets go live, and I think 6 months later we had the Beacon Chain mainnet happen. So I'm getting the same feeling, guys. And I'm telling you now, I can see it happening in Q1. Now, don't quote me on that, please, because giving dates in Ethereum has been notoriously difficult. But it's so close. Like, even if it takes to the end of Q2 for whatever reason, that's only 9 months from now. It's really not that long in the grand scheme of things. And we have so much happening up until then anyway. I'm going to go through all of it in a sec, but I'm pretty confident in Q1 at this point. But we'll have to wait and see. We'll wait and see what comes out of this, what more information gets published, what the core devs kind of say. None of them are giving any kind of like dates or launch windows at this point. They all know that they want to do it ASAP for a multitude of reasons. I think the biggest reason is that we just want to get it done, right? Like, get it out of the way because everyone knows that it's critical to Ethereum's roadmap. And then once it happens, we can start working harmoniously as a single Ethereum network again, and start looking forward to upgrades like sharding and statelessness and stuff like that can be implemented. But and also getting off proof of work is a huge kind of, I guess, motivation for these teams as well. No matter what your view on proof of work is, the Ethereum ecosystem doesn't view proof of work very favorably at all. We think it is insecure. We think it is wasteful. We think that Ethereum's proof of stake mechanism is infinitely better than it for a number of reasons. And of course, the thing that I think a lot of people are excited about, outside of maybe the core devs are excited about this too, but the general community, is that triple halvening event that's going to happen once the merge goes through. That 90% instant issuance reduction. That is, incredibly bullish for the ETH price, right? Like, it's funny because people often debate, will the ETH price crash when the merge happens because it'll be like sell the news event? And that may happen, but I could imagine a scenario where ETH goes to like 20k or something by the time the merge happens and then crashes to 10k. Or something, right? I don't know. Like, I'm just giving some wild kind of like prices right now, but I can imagine a scenario like that happening. And if that happens, it's like kind of like, well, whoever bought at like these price levels, would you even care at that point? So I don't know. It could be a sell the news thing, depending on how much hype there is. I think there's going to be a lot of hype, to be honest. I think a lot of people are beginning to understand that we're going to have like a massive issuance reduction. The merge more generally is just something that's a really massive kind of narrative and hype. And I've discussed before about how every time Ethereum does one of these major upgrades, the last one was 1559, obviously the next one's going to be the merge, we kind of like de-risk Ethereum for the more institutional and the more kind of like bigger investors who kind of see this and like, okay, well, it's safe to park my money in this, or it's safe to park kind of like my client's money in this. And who knows, maybe by the time the merge goes through, we'll even have like an ETF for ETH. Like, if Bitcoin gets an ETF, I think ETH is very, very close behind. And I mean, like, in the next 6 to 9 months, so much can happen. Like, the layer 2 rollout's going to be continuing and adoption is going to be skyrocketing there, which I'm going to talk about in a sec. But not just that. Like, if the price of ETH continues to go up over the coming months, which I expect it will, that adoption follows that. And we finally have a lot of these layer 2s live now that we can onboard these new users to. So I don't know, guys. Like, I am so pumped for the next, like, 6 to 12 months, especially within Ethereum, and obviously beyond that. But the next 6 to 12 months is going to be, as I mentioned yesterday, the golden age of Ethereum. Like, there is not, in my mind, there is probably not going to be a more exciting time to be in the Ethereum ecosystem than it is right now. I have never felt this excited about it. Even back in like 2018 and 2019 and 2020, where things were really happening. Like, obviously 2020, we had like a massive explosion in kind of like DeFi activity. The ETH price went back up and broke prices that I hadn't seen since 2017 when it was going up, and obviously when it was going down in 2018. And it was just like, it was super positive back then, but it's honestly, the feeling that I had back then is nothing compared to what I feel now. It feels like so many years worth of effort and work is coming together so like at the same time and so beautifully, and just at the right time as well, where we're actually onboarding millions and millions of people through things like NFTs and of course DeFi and stuff like that, and crypto gaming. It's all coming together and the Ethereum ecosystem is ready. Like, it is ready. We're on the cusp right now. So, and on that note, I think I should talk about the biggest kind of the big layer 2 news today, which happened just an hour ago. StarkWare has announced that StarkNet Alpha is hitting mainnet in November this year, not 2022, this year. The reason why this is so exciting, just to give some context here, people thought that it would take 2+ years a few months ago for StarkWare to get this tech to mainnet, or for like generalized kind of like ZK rollups and kind of like validiums and volitions and stuff like that getting to mainnet. And by generalized, I mean being able to build whatever you want on there and having interoperability, kind of like what Arbitrum and Optimism have today. No, the alpha is going. I mean, it's an alpha. It's a very early stage, but it's going live on mainnet in November. And obviously, StarkWare already has plenty of apps live, like DYDX, ImmutableX, So Rare, and I'm forgetting one right now, Diversify. They're all live. They're all working extremely well. DYDX has seen explosive growth, but I mean, I didn't even expect it to come this soon. I thought they were going to launch it probably January or February next year, but they seem to feel ready to launch this onto mainnet in November, which, I don't know, guys. Like, this is absolutely massive, and kind of like their launch is very similar to what Arbitrum did. To what Optimism has done, where it's kind of like a permission smart contract deployment. So there's going to be a whitelist. Obviously, Arbitrum doesn't have a whitelist, but they did for a little while, but now they don't. But I think this is closer to what Optimism has been doing. And on top of that, there's going to be a bunch of other kind of things like improved contract functionality, Warp, which is the Solidity to Cairo compiler developed by Nethermind, will be available apparently, which allows you to transition from Solidity contracts to StarkNet smart contracts. That's one big thing that I think is in the kind of like optimistic rollups favor right now, and why I believe they're the kind of like medium term solution still, because it's EVM compatible, whereas StarkNet is not necessarily EVM compatible. It will just let you kind of like transpile your existing contracts to their Cairo language to work on StarkNet, but obviously that's going to take longer for teams to kind of adapt to and teams to kind of like roll out on. But we've seen what happens when they do it. Like, these apps are absolutely massive on StarkWare already, and they've got a few more details in here about kind of like the fee mechanism, the security. So I guess like the fee mechanism will be turned on as soon as account contracts and token contracts are added to StarkNet Alpha. All transactions submitted to StarkNet will incur a fee designed to cover L1 and off-chain gas costs here. I don't know how much that fee is going to be, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be very cheap there. And then you can have security here as well. The network will be upgradable, of course, without any time delays. Very, very similar to these other kind of like L2 constructions that we've seen go live as well. I mean, there's more info in this blog post. You can go check it out. But guys, I seriously cannot tell you how big of a deal this is. Like, as I said, people thought this was years away from coming to mainnet. And as I've been going on about lately, and I've been referencing a lot of Polynya's work, this stuff is just coming much sooner than people think it is. And StarkWare is not the only team working on this. Polygon's working on it with Hermes. ZK Sync is working on this with ZK Porter and ZK Sync 2.0, I should say Matter Labs, that's the company behind ZK Sync. And then Arbitrum and Optimism are also looking at ZK technology. Don't just think they're just kind of like sitting there and being like, oh, we're just going to like not look at this at all. We're not going to build any tools here. They're, of course, looking at it and building stuff around it. They just haven't kind of like announced anything official yet, but I'm sure they are. And, you know, I kind of get irked sometimes when people say, oh, you know, what's the point of kind of like Optimism and Arbitrum now? They're kind of like finished, you know, ZK Op's going to take over. That's not how to think about this ecosystem, guys. Like, it is not zero sum when it comes to the L2 space. As I've mentioned on the Refuel before, we are entering the very beginnings of the L2 era. We're going to see an explosion of these things. There is going to be more L2s than there have been L1s, and there's already too many L1s, right? Most of them won't succeed in terms of getting adoption, but the thing is, that doesn't matter. What matters is that we're going to have so much innovation, so much stuff happening, so much activity happening, just, I mean, an incredible amount of it, and it's all going to be feeding into the Ethereum ecosystem. So, like, I know that people love to call me an ETH maxi for saying this, but Ethereum has won. Like, if you can't see it at this point, I don't know what to tell you. Ethereum has already won. None of these L2s are going to want to secure themselves on other networks, because why would you do that? Like, unless it's a pure data availability network, like the Polygon Avail or Celestia or something like that, why would you kind of secure yourself on a less secure network than Ethereum? As I've mentioned before, the only other network that can be considered on par with Ethereum security is Bitcoin, but Bitcoin can't verify Starks and can't do data availability. So from that point of view, I mean, I don't know. Ethereum has won, guys. Like, I've said this for a long time now. This is exactly why, because these L2s are going to basically obliterate the other L1s. They're going to be much more secure than them. And even the kind of like ones that trade off a bit of security, like the Volitions and the Validiums, are already better in scaling wise than these kind of like monolithic L1s, as Polynya likes to call them. And the reason why I talk about Polynya a lot, actually, is because they were able to kind of, I guess, completely change my mindset around this. Like, I obviously have been talking about layer 2s for quite a while, but I wasn't thinking about it in the terms of kind of like modular blockchains, where you have blockchains that do security and data availability, or one of those, and then you have execution off chain, right? You have the kind of like execution done on L2. And just thinking about it like that really opens your eyes to the fact that, holy shit, we can do all the hard stuff off-chain, but still inherit the security from layer 1. And the best layer 1 there is right now, and probably for the foreseeable future, is Ethereum. Because think about all the other layer 1s. They're never, like, in my eyes, they're never going to be as secure or as decentralized as Ethereum. It's pretty much impossible for that. And Ethereum is a moving target. It doesn't just sit still and do nothing. Ethereum security and decentralization is only going to get better over time. Once we do the merge, Ethereum security upgrades itself by like at least a 10x, like probably more than that. We have much more capital securing it. We have a proof of stake system that I would argue is much better than Ethereum's proof of work system. And that improves over time as well. I just like, I don't know, like, people can call me an ETH maxi, whatever. I am an ETH maxi when it comes to being the most secure kind of like I guess like security layer, and then data availability layer, and then as we add sharding, we're going to have even more space for data to kind of like put it onto. And data sharding comes as like the first phase, but there's also in the longer term stuff like super quadratic sharding and stuff like that, which just allows for even more scalability, and then doing and then like kind of compressing stuff at layer 1 as well, like snarkifying the base layer. There's just so much of this stuff coming that I don't see how any other layer 1 can catch up to it. And I mentioned yesterday how I think some of the L1s are just going to pivot to being a roll-up or an L2 on Ethereum. If they don't, there's going to be L2s that launch that just obliterate them anyway. And we've already seen this happen a lot of the time. The funny thing is, one L2 app, DYDX, is doing more volume and more activity than all the other L1s pretty much combined. So when you take that into as a context there, you can already see why this kind of like paradigm where the kind of like roll-up centric roadmap has won. And it's funny, Vitalik called this a very long time ago when he posted the roll-up centric roadmap, and he'd been talking about this for a while before then. And you look at all the smartest people in this ecosystem, they're all talking about this sort of stuff. They're all talking about specifically zero knowledge tech, basically eating the entire crypto space. And there's a reason for that, because it will. There's no kind of a question of like if it will, it's when it will. And we're seeing it come to mainnet much faster now, especially with StarkWare's announcement here, which is absolutely massive. And what was even more massive, maybe I guess like not more massive, but another kind of like thing that came out of the StarkWare ecosystem today was Uri, the co-founder and CEO of StarkWare, saying that StarkEx now averages L1 gas cost is now sub 650 gas per transaction in production on mainnet. But then he goes on to say, I don't know if this is a typo or not. I don't think it is. Then he goes on to say that Validium is doing 650 gas transactions on mainnet, but rollups are doing 600 gas transactions, with DYDX batching has batches of 12k transactions, so 12,000 transactions in one batch on layer 1. Absolutely insane, right? And then Lyron here, who actually works as a product and ecosystem at StarkWare, he basically says, wait, what? On-chain data with big batches is cheaper than off-chain data with smaller batches? This follow-up here basically says to me that this is real. This isn't a typo. Now, I want to explain why this is a big deal. I've explained before how Validium sacrifice security because they put like the data off-chain in order to get more scalability, but Uri's saying that they've been able to get rollups, which basically put both of the things on chain, the proofs and the data on chain, so inherit Ethereum security wholeheartedly. He's saying that that's cheaper than a Validium. Do you get the implications of that? Like, that is insane. That means that we won't even need Validiums or Volitions long term eventually, as the kind of like rollup ecosystem matures even more, the ZK rollup ecosystem matures even more, because it'll just be cheaper to be a ZK rollup than it will to be a Validium or Volition. So this is crazy, right? Maybe I don't know, maybe I'm looking at this wrong, but like just considering the implications of this is absolutely insane. And if you want to put some numbers to this, Alexander actually had a great tweet here where he said, that's about 10 US cents per transaction at 50 Gwei gas prices. 10 cents. 10 cents. For these these aren't normal transactions either. DYDX transactions are trades. They're kind of like things you would see on if you try, for example, if you try to do a DYDX on layer 1, it would probably cost at least $50 per trade. So you're talking about an absolutely insane improvement here. Probably, it would probably cost you like 300,000 gas to kind of do a trade. It's only 600 gas on StarkWare ZK rollup. This is such a substantial improvement. The L1s can't even claim to be able to do this. That's why I'm saying these L1s are obsolete. They're old technology already. They bring nothing to the table. Layer 2 is the future. ZK Starks, Starks, ZK rollups, all this sort of stuff. That is the future. And it's come much faster than we all thought it would. So yeah, I know I'm rambling a lot on about here about kind of like, I guess like layer 2s and things like that. But guys, I haven't just these sorts of things just coming in succession. We're just going to see more and more of this. This is just insane. And, then, I focused on StarkWare a lot here, but they're not the only one kind of making moves, of course. Like Arbitrum announced that they have onboarded another app called ideamarket, which is basically kind of like they call themselves a credibility layer on the internet, but they're also kind of, I guess a kind of a prediction market platform as well. They can kind of like bet on anything. But you can see here that the old gas fees were $50 to $250 per transaction on kind of like on layer 1. Now on layer 2, the transaction fees are $1 to $10 basically. So pretty massive improvement there for idea market. And as I said before, the reason why these things can deploy to Arbitrum is because Arbitrum is EVM compatible, and that allows people to kind of like just deploy their existing code onto Arbitrum, which is super exciting. But I mean, anything that brings down gas costs this much is amazing for end users at the end of the day. I've always said that I think there's like a sweet spot for gas, at least in kind of like the short to medium term, because people always say, oh, well, what about people in kind of like third world countries or poorer countries where they can't even afford like 1 cent for a transaction? They basically need free transactions. We're going to get there, but the way technology works is that those people get served kind of like on last, right? Because technology is inherently expensive at the start, and then it gets cheaper over time as kind of like economies of scale kick in. So the same happened with the internet, for example. Like the poorer countries got the internet last, but the thing is they got to skip basically dial-up, they skipped broadband, and they've just gone straight to wireless. Like some parts of the world are actually just going straight to kind of like SpaceX's satellites that they're putting out there. But one of kind of like Elon Musk's endeavors, where they've basically skipped the last 20 years of internet kind of like adoption and development and gone straight to having a smartphone with just like wireless internet available to them all the time and practically for free. I think it is free, to be honest, almost like very, very cheap. So that's the same thing is going to happen here, where we're going to have like obviously really expensive for us early adopters and power users, but then over time those costs just come down dramatically, and we're seeing this already play out, and it's going to happen much faster than I think people think. So super exciting to see that. Got to give a shout out to Polynya again here. He was in a thread with a bunch of different people, including, I guess, kind of like Kyle Samani, who's a big Solana advocate, Evan SS here, who's a longtime Ethereum community member, and a bunch of other people. But his thread basically talks about, or I guess he's back and forth with Kyle, talks about ZK rollups, data availability, how Ethereum is going to scale via L2s better than Solana could ever scale, all these sorts of things. You can see here, I mean, this is an absolutely amazing thread. I love it. Like, I went through it, I read it like a couple of times, and I'm like, God, like this is just great. I suggest reading this thread. I'm not going to read it on the refuel, of course, but absolutely amazing. Gives like a really great breakdown of kind of, I guess, everything that I talk about, obviously on the refuel, everything that Polynya's talked about in the past, and why the future is ZK at the end of the day. All right, I think I got a couple more things to go on with scaling. Yeah, I got 2 more things about scaling. So ImmutableX is absolutely exploding in kind of like activity right now. So there was a kind of like a big NFT drop on their platform called Moody Crows. I didn't participate in this NFT drop, but I am an investor in ImmutableX, just a disclosure there. But their project sold out in under a minute. They did $2.5 million in primary sales, 2,900 unique addresses participated, and I'm pretty sure it didn't cost anything. It didn't cost anything in fees at all, because ImmutableX has free minting. They're kind of covering the fees because they're so cheap. And ImmutableX is a Validium, so off-chain data. It's a little bit less secure, but perfect for NFTs, right? Like, come on. And then Brett here, who I think is basically, I don't know if he runs Moody Crows, but I think he's just like a big NFT influencer, basically said, ImmutableX may have just been the most seamless experience I've had with NFTs. This is the future. I feel like I didn't participate in this. I didn't see this go live, but from what I gathered, it seems like this ran extremely smoothly, not just because of what Brett said, but I saw a bunch of other people on Twitter saying this as well. You don't actually get this from other layer ones too. Other layer ones have kind of like some clunky minting processes. They have kind of, I guess, like very similar clunky design because they're EVM compatible, so they inherit all the limitations of the EVM. They still have to basically inherit things like kind of like MetaMask and stuff like that, and kind of like the UX of that sort of stuff. So yeah, I mean, this is great. Like, seriously, again, another shining example of StarkWare's tech at work here. Because for those who don't know, ImmutableX is using StarkEx, which is StarkWare's tech, their Validium tech there. So absolutely amazing. And as I discussed the other day, Immutable has teamed up with TikTok, so they're just making waves right now. It's just absolutely crazy. And then Mihailo put out a great tweet today quoting Sundip, his co-founder of Polygon here, where Mihailo says, and I quote, "We believe it will be a multi-chain world, but on Ethereum," said Sundip here. And then Mihailo goes on to say, proud of my brother for shilling Ethereum and preaching Polygon's vision to the mainstream audience. This was in the Financial Times, actually, an article with Sandeep quoted in there. Now, this is what I've been saying. The multi-chain world is not a multi-L1 world. It is a Ethereum at the heart with multi-L2s and some side chains and app chains, I guess, like going off of that. That's the next 5 years, guys. Like I'm telling you right now, like you revisit these videos in 5 years, I am 100% confident that I am right in that thesis, that we are no longer going to be seeing L1 spin up. We're going to be seeing L2 spin up. And, you know, I actually, I was talking to my friend Trent Van Epps today, and he gave a really great analogy where he basically said, it's kind of like how you don't see new proof of work chains spin up these days. You know, the last, I guess, big fanfare proof of work chain that I think we saw was Grin. Grin is down 99.99% from its all-time high. No one wants a proof of work coin anymore. The only proof of work coins that really are still around in a big way is Bitcoin and Ethereum. Ethereum's obviously going off that. There's stuff like Dogecoin, of course, that is still kind of around, but Dogecoin is its own thing. But if you go through the list, I mean, the next one would be kind of like, I guess, Litecoin, but Litecoin is kind of like fallen off the map. No one really cares about Litecoin anymore. I mean, where is Litecoin actually? I might be blind. I'm just scrolling through CoinGecko. It's number 17. And then after that, you know, it's very hard to find another proof of work coin. So I think the same thing's going to happen where there's going to be a lot of L2s taking up the top 10, top 20 of I guess, CoinGecko rankings, and the monolithic L1s are just going to be put to the wayside. They're not going to be something that has a kind of like defensible kind of like future. So yeah, we'll revisit this in time, of course, and we'll see how this plays out. But that's where I'm placing all my bets, of course. All right, and even more bullish news, Ryan Watkins from Masari put out an update on kind of, I guess, the value that Ethereum has been settling lately. So over the past 12 months, Ethereum has settled $6.2 trillion worth of transactions in ETH and stablecoins. Now, this isn't counting all of the value that has been settled in stuff like NFTs, which, as we know, has done an incredible amount of volume over the last, I guess, like 12 months, for example. And I don't know if this is even counting all the other tokens on Ethereum as well. So you could say that $6.2 trillion is basically the floor. This is a 369% increase compared to 2020. And was powered by a very strong Q3 where Ethereum settled $1.45 trillion alone. Now, I don't know what Visa's kind of like settlement is over the last 12 months, the settlement value, but I would have to think that Ethereum is getting up there right now, or maybe even overtaking it. $6.2 trillion is nothing to scoff at, guys. Like, that's an enormous amount of money. And this is only going to keep growing. Like, Ethereum's, and you know what's funny? I don't even know if this counts roll-up transactions either, because a roll-up transaction... a rollup proof basically takes all of the value that was settled on layer 2 and settles it on layer 1, or processed on layer 2 and settles it on layer 1. But to the layer 1, it just looks like a normal transaction that paid some gas fees. But if you calculated all the value settled in the L2s and then onto L1, and then it kind of like extracted it onto L1, I mean, it's going to be very hard to calculate exactly how much value Ethereum is settling. But I'm telling you right now, in 5 years, Ethereum is going to be settling hundreds of trillions, if not quadrillions of dollars worth of value. It is going to be the settlement layer that everyone taps into, everyone talks to. It is going to be so decentralized and secure that no one nation state can control it, can take it over. I mean, God, this is why I think that ETH is going to $100,000 and beyond. Like, you put all this together, the growth is just insane. And it isn't slowing down either. The gas fees hasn't hampered Ethereum's growth at all. And then we have the L2s coming out to kind of like fix that issue with the gas fees for everyday users. And they're still inheriting the security and decentralization of Ethereum. I don't know. Like, I'm trying not to get ahead of myself here, guys. And I actually said in the Discord channel before I started recording this that you guys better get ready, because I'm gonna probably make you want to remortgage your house to buy more ETH by the end of this refuel. Today has just been a really bullish day. That's all I can say at this point. But moving on, another announcement, another kind of like enterprise, Credit Suisse is taking part in tokenizing shares of a Swiss sports resort using the Ethereum blockchain. So just kind of like more enterprises getting involved with Ethereum, settling on Ethereum, doing things on Ethereum. Like, we're seeing more and more of this go along. Visa the other day, Credit Suisse today. Societe Generale, I think that's how you say it. The other day as well, getting involved with Maker. We're just going to keep seeing more and more of this happening. And I'm going to get through the rest of these updates because I'm coming up on time here. Zappa is having amazing growth as well. A disclosure, I'm an investor in Zappa, but Zappa's monthly active users, 640,000 monthly active users. That's incredible, right? Zappa, obviously, of course, doesn't just support Ethereum. It supports different kind of like chains as well, but I don't think that matters. I think most of their activity is still probably Ethereum and Ethereum scaling solutions because they support Arbitrum Optimism and the Polygon POS chain and stuff like that. And the weekly active users is 300,000. Absolutely massive growth, insane growth, like growth everywhere right now, guys. Like I don't know how you can be bearish at this point. Like it's impossible for me to be bearish at this point, like on anything. But yeah, great growth there from Zappa. And yeah, I mean, as I said, institutions are getting more involved, and corporates are getting, and enterprises are getting more involved with Ethereum. The second largest bank in the US, the Bank of America, published a report on crypto mentioning Ethereum, DeFi, and NFTs. They're coming, guys. They're coming really, really quickly. This is going to happen much faster than you think it is. The funny thing is, I was thinking about this today while I was on my bike ride. I was like, it just struck me randomly, a thought. Web 2 companies are acutely aware of kind of like being disrupted because they were the ones that disrupted a lot of the traditional companies that kind of I guess didn't exist existed before the internet. So kind of like from that point of view, I think they're all going to move really, really quickly into the Web 3 crypto space, and they already have been, like TikTok, for example, and a bunch of other examples like Twitter doing NFTs on their platform, stuff like that. But also these kind of like financial institutions, they really need to catch up because they're all going to get completely disrupted if they don't. And I think that they realize that, and they're coming really quickly now. They're doing reports on it. They're trying to understand this market, and they're getting there. They really are. So yeah, really, really kind of like exciting news out of that. And finally, to wrap this refuel up today, the Ethereum.org translation program has been revamped. So if you want to see the update here of how that kind of like, what they're doing, milestones and updates here with the translation program for Ethereum.org, you can read this, but you can also kind of, and there's also poll-ups for people who have participated in translation. But if you want to get involved as well, there's links in here too. But yeah, go give this blog post a read. It'll be linked in the YouTube description. But I think that's going to be it for today, everyone. Don't remortgage your house to buy ETH. That was a joke, by the way. But you can't blame me if you buy ETH because of after listening to this refuel. I'm probably going to go buy some now. But anyway, I'll leave it at that for today. Thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give that video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.